Hello world, welcome to a Champions Online guide. This guide is going to be all about farming, how to gear up your characters, places to go for your basic mods, places you can gain items to sell for globals, maybe even places for experience, a little bit on questionite farming, but I don't do a lot of questionite farming or really any, so I'm not going to focus on that. My favorite place to farm is usually in Vibora Bay. There are plenty of places to go around and get things. It's not hard to get there. You don't have to do the Vibora Bay Apocalypse. You can hitch a ride. If you have a friend that's been to Vibora, you can use a team teleport device, or you can piggyback through the A Day at the Mall experience alert. Basically, once you finish killing the last boss, you go to the beginning, pop into the powerhouse, and then immediately leave. If you've never seen the old powerhouse, that's what you see when you go in through the Day at the Mall powerhouse. It's weird, but you can see it, and then you just leave, and then you're in Vibora Bay proper. Usually, there's not a whole lot of other people there, but if someone else is already farming an area, just go somewhere else. There are plenty of places to farm in Vibora Bay, and there's no need to be rude to other farmers. What you can find in Vibora is rank 4 and 5 mods, 38 purple secondaries, and some blue slotted gear. So if you have nothing, it's better than that, and it's all really cheap. The last thing are costume pieces. Most of the costume drops are actually worth a decent price. Some of them are practically worthless and almost not worth selling. One place that has an incredibly high respawn rate is the Vampire Cemetery up in the northeast. It can be dangerous to squishy toons just because of the incredibly high respawn rate. You don't need to go and farm throughout the entire cemetery. Several people can farm different areas just because that's how fast things respawn. The Sovereign Sun Cemetery on the west side of the map is also a pretty good place to farm. You go in a big circle around the whole thing, and it's not always easy to see when someone else is farming, but it's really cruisy. Even squishier characters can go through the Sovereign Sun Cemetery. After that, the dogs and the Tree Kings, I don't think they have a cemetery dedicated to themselves, but you can usually just find them in their areas and then just pick out a block to map around. Probably pick out a large area and you can go across around several blocks and just farm them up that way. It's harder to figure out if someone else is farming because there's a wide area where they could be. The only gang that is not worth farming at all is the Nephilim. They have absolutely nothing of value, except for maybe some mods, but you can get mods from the other mobs, so there's no point. The costume pieces they drop are pretty much worthless. Other things I like to do are the Bloodhound and the Sovereign Sons Rescue the Hostages missions. They're open missions, but the Bloodhound mission, it's an area where you rescue hostages here too, but they have dogs and New Shadows gangs there, so you're essentially able to get costume pieces from both of the mobs, and they have some nice drops too. Bloodhound himself is the boss at the end of the open mission, and he can be a pain in the butt just because he has a stacking heal debuff. I don't know if it's supposed to stack, but it can, which makes it can be very hard to heal yourself. Even if you're a beefier character, it can be quite challenging to kill Bloodhound, so if your character can't handle that, it doesn't really matter. You can just skip that. He doesn't drop anything worth any money anyway. The loot from the prize circle is complete garbage. I don't think Bloodhound drops his back piece here. Could be wrong. I've never had it drop for me. You can just let the whole thing fail and it'll reset eventually. And then the other one is the Sovereign Sons Rescue the Hostages. The best part would be, just going between all of the hostages and killing all the mobs. And the end part isn't too terribly interesting. Again, the loot circle doesn't really have anything of value in it. I mean, you can, it doesn't take very long. But if your character can't handle it, it's not really a big deal. You're not missing out on anything good if you don't kill the last boss things. the level 42 section of Monster Island, which is over the mountains east of where the Chimera open mission is. Basically, it's just a bunch of Lemurians. They're all level 42, I think it is. They're above level 40, and they're not too terribly difficult to kill if you have a decently survivable character. They drop the rank 5 mods on rank 4, and they have, if you don't have decent gear, you can get some decent gear from here. If you want something cheap to give your alts, then you can get some things from that. And then of course there's some Viper along the shore as well. Does have the higher level mobs, so their drops will be a bit higher level than Vibora Bay, which is level 38. Comic series and adventure packs have the advantage that they are private instances, so it's basically you and anyone you invite with you, and there's never going to be any competition. You can set the difficulty to whatever you like, but it doesn't affect the item drop rate or the item quality, so there's not really a point. Serpents Lantern is a popular choice. It scales not only with the difficulty slider, but also with the number of people in your party. So if you have a full team of 5, it becomes more difficult, whether you change the difficulty slider or not. And then bumping it all the way up to Elite just makes it that much harder. Mostly it's just more mobs and they're tougher. Bravo runs are popular for questionite. Basically, you just go through, you kill the boss guy, but you don't shut down the generator, and then you leave via the crime computer. There's plenty of mobs. You can get some nice mods and gear, and actually you could go to Serpents Lantern. I believe it's from level 11 and up. So if it was like your first character, you could go through there to get okay gear. It used to have the best gear in the game, but then Unalert happened and now it's not. But you can still get mods, and mods are always useful. You could also choose to run the entire thing, but Serpents Lantern is pretty long. There's a daily associated with it, which gives you 2,000 questionite. Or maybe it was 1,500, something like that. But normally, it's Bravo runs for the questionite box. Whiteout 3 is good for many things. I personally like to use it for story experience hour, story questionite, and story resource hours, so it's usually 3 hours at a time. All 3 of those are good to do in Whiteout 3. 1, it's private instance, so there's no competition. And 2, there are quite a few mobs. I mean, you could get lucky or unlucky, and it may take forever to get one of the shields up, which means you have tons and tons of things that just keep spawning forever. You can also use a vehicle in Whiteout 3 if you were so inclined. If you actually go all the way to the end of Whiteout 3, you'll get a questionite box as well. However, don't advance to the next Whiteout, just leave using the crime computer. That means don't talk to anyone at the end, just get your loot and leave. For custom alerts, there are 4 that stand out with drops that are actually worth something. The first one that is my favorite is Harmon Labs. Pretty much everything that drops is actually worth something. The costume pieces are still worth a decent price, and of course you can also get a chance at a depleted uranium core, which is worth much more. It's a highly desired item for a lot of endgame builds. The next one would be the Hypan alert, which is Fury of the Dragon. The costume pieces are practically worthless at this point. They're not quite at the point where you just drag them out of your inventory because they're not even worth putting on the auction house, but they're getting there. But they have the left and right eye dragon cores, which as far as I can tell are incredibly rare. During the entire time the alert has existed, I've gotten each one once. That's it. I've never seen them, either of them, more than once. I never see them on the auction house. Then again, I don't look for them because I don't want either of them. As far as I can tell, they are incredibly rare. I can get depleted uranium cores usually once per alert rotation, even if I don't farm heavily, but not the left and right eye cores. And then of course there's the Hypan aura, which is worth more than the costumes. It's not a ton of money, not as much as the cores are worth, but it's still worth a decent price. And then the purple dragon staff may or may not be worth something, I don't know. The last one I got I could never sell, so whether or not it's worth something depends. After that is Cybermind. The costume pieces that drop are worth a fair bit because it's harder for quite a few people to get through it. It does require you to pay attention and maybe fail it once or twice or have someone tell you what to do in order to make it through. Though usually if you pay attention, you can do okay for the most part, but there are some things that are not actually explained and you just have to be told them, which is stupid. And for a Malvenom, the costume pieces there are worth a nice bit as well. I don't know if the costume pieces drop if you only go through the first half. I believe you have to make it all the way through the entire alert to get the costume pieces. I've never had them drop unless I've made it to the end. Unfortunately, that requires a ton of damage. You have to have a team that is just full of high-end damage dealers. It sucks, but that's the only way you're going to make it through the Ironclad Duratox stage. They are just ridiculously tanky for no good reason. And not that many people can go through it just because, not because they're dying and party wiping, but because they just have so much damage resistance. The Cybermind dailies that you can do, which are the Socrates dailies, that would be the carrier wave and internet deployment, have a chance at costume drops at the end as well. Plus you get the 500 questionite, I think it is, per mission, which is a daily. The virus head is worth quite a bit. And there's also the Cybermind boots and the regular Socrates head. I think those are the only 3 drops. There's also an action figure that I've gotten once, but it's bound, so you can't sell it. But the other pieces are sellable and worth a decent price. And it doesn't take very long to do either of them, maybe like a few minutes. I mean, as you get good with them, it could be like 5 minutes and you could be done. The carrier wave is super quick, so. And the internet deployment one is pretty quick as long as you don't run past the little mission things that you have to interact with, which I've done before and then had to backtrack. The internet deployment one is a lot longer than the carrier wave. The carrier wave is pretty straightforward, you just blow through the whole thing. Steel Crusade dailies are another good source of questionite. The one that's 500 or 750, but it's super easy. You just go around and you spray seltzer water on everybody and they magically get cured. And it doesn't take very long. It's like, what, 15 people you have to squirt with seltzer water, and it's like, bam, you have all your questionite, and it's really easy. And then you can, of course, do the whole entire thing, which takes a little bit longer. But it's an option if you want more questionite. I don't believe there are any costume pieces outside of the ones you pick up from the costume vendor on the space station just from completing the dailies. Basically, rep rewards. Rampages are a nice source of questionite. Every day you can do a rampage, and if you win, you get 1500 for the first run, 1200 for the second, then 900, 600, and 300 for every run after that. But it resets every day, so it's not bad if you want to get a little bit of questionite. Especially Gravatar, which is a great place if you really like Gravatar. It's really simple if you have some decent people on your team. You know, you have to have some of the tanky DPSers, or if you just have like a healer or two, then the runs usually go pretty smoothly. But even for a bunch of random people, it wins. And of course, if you want Justice Gear, which is practically free, you do have to get the Drifter Trash, and you can get Drifter Trash crates on the auction house. I don't think that Rampages give a whole lot of globals, and then the costume pieces are not normally worth a whole lot. I mean, Gravatar's costume pieces are practically worthless now. I'm not even sure if they're worth listing on the auction house because that's how low the value is of them now. I'm not sure how much the auras are worth, I believe the ice ore is not worth a whole lot, and the psionic ore, I'm not sure. Ice ore is pretty ugly, so I can see why no one really wants it. And then there's some various other pieces. Nothing stands out as worth a whole lot as far as I know. There is a vehicle that drops from Lemuria Invasion, which probably still worth something decent. The vehicle itself isn't exactly amazing. There are better vehicles now. It does have a unique look. There really is nothing come out that has the look of this vehicle done. So if someone likes vehicles and they want this unique looking one, that's the only place they're gonna get it.